It's on.
All right, we're going to begin the meeting of improvements and services, starting at 5:40, a few minutes late here. Alderman Stoyer will be sitting in for Alderman Danziger, and I'm joined with Alderman Nennig, myself, Joe Moore, and staff. No joke for Brian. So, first, if I can get the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on January 13th, 2016.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Item number 2, the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda. Second.
I think we can move the purchasing, number 8. We'll just take that item first and let our friend go home here if you guys are open to that. All right, we got the motion and a second to approve the agenda, moving item 8 to the first item on the, to item number 3. Do I have the vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's approved. So item number 8, report of the purchasing manager. A, request approval to purchase pump controllers from Berg Johnson Associates for $12,350.
Primarily defer to the director on this. This is a sole source request. It's unique equipment that's only available from one source in the upper Midwest here.
And we've talked about items such as this in the past, especially when it comes to pump controllers and pumps, that pumps being very proprietary, not too dissimilar from automobiles. You can't exactly take and put a transmission from a Chevrolet into a Ford, so you have to buy the parts from the manufacturer or from a manufacturer rep. So this is a sole source request to come out for the controllers for the pumps. The amount is $12,350. Pump controllers are the only ones that are compatible with our existing PLC, and they're compatible with the remote programming and firmware for our SCADA system, which is our relay system. They're manufactured by Schneider Electric. They're only available locally through their manufacturer's rep, who's Berg Johnson. These are for the controllers at the Broadway Clinton Storm Lift Station, the former H&R Paper landfill, and Landwell Field surge tank. Going back and reviewing comps, this is definitely within the range of of acceptable price for comparable type items. So the recommendation from staff is to make the award in the dollar value quoted.
Got any questions?
I just had a question. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, Steve, how many are there? And when you say pump controllers, is there a number of them?
There are 3 controllers, and then there's there's a digital expansion module and one PLC, it looks like.
So it's like 5 items in a sense?
Correct. The bulk of the information is the 3 pump controllers. There's one for each of the 3 lift stations. Those are $2,662 a piece, so $7,980 of the total expenditures for those 3 items. And then there's a $3,700 item and a $620 item.
Okay. All right. No more questions. Thank you.
Alderman Nenning?
No, I'll move to approve the purchase.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Item number 3, request by Alderman Zima that the city consider allowing any person with a junk picker's license permission to remove items from the household waste dump sites on both the east and west side, which would reduce the amount of household waste, which eventually ends up in the landfill at an increased cost to city taxpayers. This has been held over from January 13th, 2016 INS committee meeting.
We did provide to you a memo in your packet, prepared by Chris Pierlot, Operations Director and Parking Manager, talking about a background on this item and then a discussion. We do see a wide variation of the type of material that's deposited in those bulk waste bunkers. A lot of furniture, a lot of mattresses, a lot of exercise equipment, toys, clothing, auto parts. Construction and demo debris is not allowed in the bunkers. However, we are seeing a lot of it being deposited there. Of these items, there are some that do have some popularity with junk collectors, primarily because they have recyclable content and value, appliances and scrap metals, lumber and shingles, and household recyclables. Primarily, it's the metals and the appliances that are the key. That's what most folks are looking at. However, one of the issues we have is those types of materials that have a residual value or recyclable value, as staff is unloading the bunker and getting that material ready to transport for disposal, we're actually salvaging that material out. And we're turning it in for salvage value, which helps offset our cost. That would be a decrease in revenue to the city.
That's what I was concerned about.
And that's daily, we pull that stuff out.
Is there a number that you can put on something like that? I know it's.
Last year, we generated just shy of $2,000 worth of recycling value.
It's much more revenue than you're gonna get on permits.
Correct. We did also talk to CIVMIC, the Cities and Villages Municipal Insurance Corporation, who we are a member of, and had a discussion with them relative to liability that could be incurred by the city to allow folks to come in and root around in our bunkers. The city would require a liability waiver with every party who wished to go in there. So we would have to patrol that and ensure that every junk picker who's picking in the bunkers had a liability waiver. And even that liability waiver would be no guarantee of not being dragged into a lawsuit. They may not be successful, but we would have a duty to defend and a cost to defend. CIVMIC very strongly recommended that we not allow this. So I understand and can appreciate what Alderman Zima is hoping to accomplish. It's great that we have folks who are looking to help us find ways to minimize our bottom line and still be able to provide the service to the residents that the residents want. However, it's staff's recommendation in this case that we don't think allowing folks to come into the bunkers for salvaging would be the best move on behalf of the city.
Are there other communities, I know De Pere does this, but that you know of that have had this issue as well? Or is this just kind of?
I'm not aware of any other municipalities allowing junk
Allowing
pickers
this.
to go
De
in.
Pere, up until maybe a year or two ago, allowed junk pickers to come in. And my understanding is they had problems. And they have, I know that they've discontinued it because we've talked with their senior management and they've discontinued it. Now, they had a little better control on their bunkers because in De Pere, it's a smaller DPW facility. They have a single facility. And the bunkers are, you can look out the front door from the clerical area and you can see the bunkers right over there. So they were always kind of being monitored. When they weren't there, they could close and lock the gates, control and keep the people out. We don't have that convenience.
Joe, weren't you, we went on a tour out there, didn't we? Weren't you there in De Pere? Okay,
No,
a
not-
few of us alders went out to
Yeah.
De Pere to see that. And, yeah, it was pretty self-contained. So,
Now, we have those times every year when people can still put bulk waste at the curb. Can people still get a picker's license and pick on those days during those weeks?
That's, from a purely technical standpoint, that's not what a picker's license allows for.
Okay.
Okay? A picker's license is almost like a transport license. But it has been used for that purpose in the past. If you strictly read city ordinance, the minute it's placed out to the curb for collection, it becomes city property and only staff is authorized to collect it, but we have allowed junk pickers. So yes, junk pickers are very in tune with when our bulk collection, curbside bulk collection is, and they are exercising their abilities during that time, and we don't deny that.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand the issue here for people that have been going around doing this as, a hobby or as a living, but, the system changed, and I can't see having people digging in our bunkers at the garages, trying to get material out. You know, I certainly encourage people, if they have usable items, to, you know, either donate them to charities that collect and resell items, or something. You know, there are some internet sites where you can list things that you want to give away, and you know, I certainly encourage people to do that as much as possible. But once the stuff is in our bunkers, at least my experience is that it's pretty much junk. Most of it is not very usable, and I can imagine there could be liability concerns, because a lot of it is not in real great shape when it's put in there, and could cause injuries to people. So,
Right.
you know.
One of the other concerns that I have, to be very honest, is if you travel by our bunkers, especially on a Monday morning, it's messy enough with people putting things in. If we now have people taking things out, this is gonna get out of control. We're gonna have material spilling out. I actually had to come up with a plan to redo the employee parking lot at the East Side Garage this year, because the material was spilling out of the bunker, and we had employees having damage to their vehicles just trying to get in on the parking lot.
And blocking access on evenings and weekends from, say, police and fire units, even being able to get in there to get to the fuel pumps, because there's so much stuff.
I understand the concept, you know, but, you know, in reality, I think it is a bit of an issue. You know, and you know, like I said, but when it gets into the bins, it is junk, but people are picking through for recyclable items, and I can see them digging all the way down, dumping stuff all over the
Right.
place, and then it's more of a hassle for you guys to clean it up.
Correct.
As well, so, I don't know. I would make a motion, well, I don't know, receive and place on file, is that?
I think that's acceptable.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and place on file the request to allow junk pickers license permission to remove items. Can I get a vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Item number 4, request by Alderman Tim Duane to consider a reuse day 4 times a year where people can put items such as windows, metal doors, cabinets, etc., out to the curb for pickup. This was held over from the January 13th, 2016 INS committee meeting. Zach?
We have included a memo which summarizes Chris's investigation into this item. Alderman Duane indicated that this is something that's popular in Germany. So Chris did a pretty exhaustive search, taking a look for different types of programs that have this opportunity. We've not been able to come up with a lot of good correlation. What we did find was a program in Durham, Ontario, that has some reuse days where folks can drop off reusable items at the city's waste management center. However, they are pretty limited. They have to be good quality and deemed suitable for reuse by charities. And I would imagine most people are taking advantage of that already, as was indicated at the last discussion of the last item. Either people are doing something useful with it already, or it's coming into the bunkers as bulk waste. Unacceptable items have to be disposed in Durham. They only act as a collection source for the local charities. Chris was able to also find not necessarily a specific reuse program in Germany, but a description of their Green Dot program that sets a fee on manufacturers and retailers for product packaging. The more packaging there is, the higher the fee. And this has led to a drastic decrease in trash generation by smarter and more efficient packaging. Again, although we promote increased recycling and reduction of waste volume, education efforts are only effective because they're backed by a higher government authority. We continue to educate local residents on recycling and waste reduction. We do not recommend establishment of a curbside reuse program. We think that the drawbacks that we identified back in December and Alderman Sawyer, you weren't here for that discussion, so some of the things that we're worried about, with the existing programs we see, we have a lot of issues with lack of compliance or improper compliance with the programs that we deal with at a staff level on a daily basis that never make it up to committee or council level with folks. I set that out for somebody to come and get. I didn't realize this was the week. I thought it was last week. I thought it was next week. And we provide every resident within the last 2 weeks. We have visited every residence in the city of Green Bay, handing out the 2016 schedules and solid waste regulations.
Right.
And today I had another phone call from somebody asking me a question relative to proper set out of materials. And I asked them, did you receive the packet? Oh, you mean that bag that was on the cart?
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, I have it in the kitchen.
it's in there.
It's discussed in there. And then I went through and gave me the answer, but I mean, you know,
Well,
we have folks that, you know, again, well, I didn't realize this was the day, I didn't know this was acceptable or unacceptable. I can see that just exploding with having times for folks to put anything out to the curb. We already have the opportunity, if somebody has something that's usable that they would like to give away free to a good home, you can put that out and put a sign, free to a good home, just keep it on your side of the sidewalk. And if you don't have sidewalk at your house, in your driveway, there is a sidewalk section through your driveway that denotes the property line.
so you have to do it behind that sidewalk.
Keep it on the house side of the sidewalk section, and we won't pick it up. Now, if it's out there for 3 weeks, somebody may turn it into inspection as a nuisance.
Right.
But, you know, that's already out there. In order to make sure that folks don't just willy-nilly landfill things, we do include information on our website, and I think we put it in the stuffer this time out, with various charities that take various items as
Goodwill,
alternatives to
St. Vincent de Paul,
landfilling. So
reuse
I think the
stores.
city is making more than just a token effort. I think we're going above and beyond what a lot of other communities do to try to find alternates to landfilling for these materials. I think the cons definitely outweigh the pros as far as having this kind of a reuse type activity.
We have two time periods during the year for this right now.
Well, what we
Two.
have is 2 periods during the year where we do bulk collection at the curbside. This would be not bulk collection of garbage materials. What Alderman Dwayne is asking for is something that's usable and has value to somebody, but doesn't have value to you. So if you had a bed frame that you didn't want to throw out, and you didn't necessarily want to bring it to a local charity, you could put that, or an entertainment center, or 2x4s. You bought too many 2x4s for your project, and you want to make them available to somebody. To put them at the curb and say, inquire within, or free, or
Free
what
to a
have you.
good home.
Again, the minute you put it out to the terrace, between the sidewalk and back of curb, that's defined under ordinance, and I'm not really interested in redefining that under ordinance, because our existing programs, we already have problems getting compliance with our existing programs. I think this would be very confusing.
It could be
Well-
considered an early setup also, you know, and then we'd go pick it up and send a bill.
Subject to fees.
Yeah,
for collection.
Right.
See, I don't have a sidewalk in front of my house, so, you know, the times when years ago, when I put something on the curb.
You want one? You're at the right committee.
We'll deal with that another time.
But you do have a sidewalk section through your driveway.
Well,
So it defines where.
It
the
goes,
city
it
property
goes
starts.
from 2 large panels to probably 4 very small ones. Looks like a sidewalk running
well,
through.
I know where it is, but it, yeah, there's a line delineating it, but I don't, yeah, I'd have to look at it again. But I'm just saying, if I put it that far back on the lawn, people might say, well, that's on the lawn, I'm not gonna,
You'd have to put a sign up
Well,
to identify it.
yeah.
That's what
And
we
we've
find,
seen
is most
those.
people who are interested in giving that away or placing things for sale, I mean, we see it on, there's an individual on Belt Avenue who's got snow blowers and lawnmowers and things like that for sale. And they keep it on the private side.
yeah.
And as long as it's not a nuisance condition to anybody, it's kept relatively neat, and doesn't create a problem with vectors, and neighbors aren't complaining about it, we've allowed that to go on. We're not looking to be out there and be somebody's front yard police.
Yeah, I've seen that happen in my district where someone will put, something with a, free sign on it,
Sure.
on the front lawn, and it's amazing how quickly that stuff disappears. Personally, I think that if you were to have a day or a number of days where people could put things at the curb, it would just get confusing. I think the simpler the regulations are, and the easier it's going to be for people to remember the days and comply with the ordinances. And I also agree with Alderman Moore that, you're going to get, if stuff isn't picked up, it's going to be at the curb, and then we'll pick it up and bill people, and I'm sure that'll will cause problems as well. So I think there are plenty of alternatives for people if they have items that can be reused, that they can, a lot of charities will come and pick them up at your house. So I'm all for encouraging those kind of things, but I don't see a need for the city to change its policy at this point. So I'll make a motion to receive it and place it on file.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to receive and place on file the request to discuss the consideration of reuse day. Can I get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 5, request by Alderman Thomas Dwayne to discuss with possible action the cost for permits for storm sewer work. This is held over from the January 13, 2016 INS committee meeting. Staff.
I had a conversation with Alderman Dwayne earlier today. He indicated that he has not been successful in tracking down and speaking with a resident who requested this communication be put in. Alderman Dwayne indicated that rather than continuing to hold this, he suggests that we receive and place on file, and he can resubmit as a new communication if necessary.
I'll move to receive and place on
Second.
file.
Motion and a second to receive and place on file. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and that passes unanimously. Thank you. And item number 6, request by Parking Division to secure quotes for replacement of its parking access and revenue control system, parks, equipment. Staff.
Back at the December 9th, 2015 meeting, we had a discussion relative to the replacement of our parks equipment. And at that time, what we were asking for was, we had made a recommendation. We had planned on collecting money, and this is part of our capital, or part of our budget every year. There's a certain amount of money within the parking division that goes into our parking division capital fund, our 430 account. We put that money aside on an annual basis to stockpile or create a reserve for these types of items, replacement of our revenue control system. Unfortunately for us, we had been planning on putting this money away over the next 3 to 4 years because we knew that the parks equipment needed to be replaced. In late 2000, well, we were notified in early 2015 when 3M, the owner of the federal APD equipment that we have, decided to get out of the parks business. They no longer manufacture that equipment. We knew we were going to have to replace this equipment sooner rather than later. Late 2015, the equipment started to crash on a more frequent basis. We are now, on a daily basis, just limping this parks equipment along. Not only does this, the revenue control equipment is what we use for reconciliation of our banking, it's our audit equipment, it's what we use to control access into and out of our parking ramps, and it's malfunctioning on a pretty regular basis. It's everything we can do to keep it going. So what we did back in December was we made a request to investigate and look for some money that we could do the replacement in 2016. And that was agreed upon by this committee and then forwarded as a recommendation. Council approved that as well. What we had discussed back in December was we had $155,000 set aside in our 431 account that was specifically earmarked for this purpose.
431?
431.
Yeah, 431 is vehicles/equipment.
Okay.
Parts is equipment.
We had $260,000 in our 430 account, our cap reserve fund, that was a combination of $250,000 that we had previously set aside for replacement of the lighting in Cherry Street ramp that we could defer, and $10,000 that we came in under budget on the boiler upgrade back in 2015. So we could divert that money over for the parks equipment, which left about $300,000 that we needed to still come up with. What we have determined is that on a short-term basis, we've got some interfund loans that we could do, essentially borrow the money to ourselves from a different area to at least get the requisitions out there, get the material ordered, and if necessary, cover the initial payments. And then we will have a $300,000 item that will go forward as part of our bond request. But in my opinion, I don't think we can afford to wait until the bond request goes forward and the bonding funds come in, because by that time, the system's gonna be crashing far too frequently.
Steve, if I can ask, what is it's 15 years since you replaced this. What is the normal shelf life? Is there a shelf life that you see?
It's
They're
computerized equipment,
They're saying 8 to 10.
seven
If
to
you're lucky.
10, 8 to 10.
So
So
we're
this-
way past.
So this
Technology's
was
familiar with
requested
systems.
from this committee to do this, and now the parking division's also asking?
No, parking division is the one who made the initial
Oh,
request.
they made the initial
Yes.
request, okay.
But parking is part of Public Works.
That wasn't part of the
We're
discussion,
just-
but was it pretty straightforward?
Yeah, we're just authorizing now to basically send out our
Well,
reports here, right?
this
First
is,
step.
this is more an update on the previous item to let you know that we have come up with a financing plan.
Okay.
So we do intend to go forward and start soliciting these quotes, and then just also to let you know, part of that financing plan is gonna is gonna be part of our bond request. And just to let you know that I do intend to come and ask for bonding funds to pay for this.
Are there various companies that sell this kind of
Oh,
equipment?
absolutely, there's
So-
there's a decent amount out there.
So we'll-
Just that,
We'll bid this out, or?
Absolutely,
Yes,
this will go
competitive
through
quotes.
purchasing department,
absolutely.
and will be quoted out, and we do expect we have been contacted by or in contact with several different vendors.
Mhm.
They know that we're in the market for an automated parks system. They're very interested in providing that system, so I do expect that we're gonna get.
Because we've had to do in-depth research to get some realistic budgetary prices, because we haven't shopped for this stuff in
Yeah.
over a decade.
Didn't we send you or someone to a conference on parking?
Yeah, we
Management?
typically go to
Yeah.
the National Parking Conference once a year.
Yeah.
One of the senior staff in parking will, just to
Well-
keep up on the technology.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of choice. It seems like a reasonable approach to it, and, we can see when the quotes come in or bids come in through purchasing, we can see what the amount is, but, there's really no other way of doing this, I wouldn't think, except to use those funds that are available in those two accounts and then consider bonding for the remainder. So, go
I was just gonna say, I think that I think part of some consideration on the funding that we may have to look into, instead of bonding, might be 2015 surplus as well. I'm not sure where that number is coming in exactly right now, and I know that we've already allocated through the budget protect process some of those funds, but when a great majority of those funds are there because of the work of Public Works, I'd like to see some of that money brought
Well-
back to Public Works rather than bonded.
It's not actually an item on the agenda, but as you broach that subject, I can give you just a very short update. Based off of the preliminary numbers that I saw from the finance director that were brought forward to finance committee a couple of weeks ago, it looks like there's a total of about $2.2 million worth of revenues exceeding expenditures for 2015. Now, those numbers are not final.
Right.
But based off of their projections, we're looking at about 2.2 million. Department of Public Works expenditures came in about there's $2.3 million worth of available monies. Our expenditures came in $2.2 million less than what we had anticipated, and we generated over $400,000 worth of revenue more than what we expected. So of the $2.3 million that's available, the Department of Public Works was responsible for about 2.6 of it.
And I'd love to get you new trucks and stuff.
So,
Well, but does that normally,
The
a lot of,
necessary,
you know, I understand that we're the city, so we have all these various departments, and that sounds like a common sense approach, but isn't there something as far as these monies and that would go back into a general fund and be dissipated
some,
accordingly?
yeah, I mean,
some of
there,
it is.
there's, you know, applied surplus, we did last year, 267,000 in applied surplus, we used some of that funds, there's,
Right.
during the budgetary process, we allocated some building maintenance repairs for fire, we allocated money for body cameras. So we've already spent some of that money before we had it basically in our pockets. But this revenue number is a lot higher than the number we were expecting at that time as well. So like I said, I mean, I'd love to be able to say, you guys
Well,
need new
I
fleet
have-
vehicles, here they are, but when there's an item like this park system,
I
that
have talked to my
is such a high
staff.
overhead, if we can get it done without bonding on 8 to 10 years of technology.
My folks, and I'm sure Jim and Chris are gonna laugh about this a little bit. I operate in a rather Spartan environment. Okay, if it's not absolutely necessary, we don't buy it.
Right.
And as a result, we do without on quite a few levels. So I have asked my staff to go back and take a look at what do you need that you don't have? And I am prepared, I am coming to Finance Committee when they talk about these year-end numbers with a laundry list of things that I want. Because truth be told, we wouldn't be talking about these numbers if it wasn't for the fiscal management of the Department of Public Works. We generate most of this surplus. And this year, I'm gonna come asking.
Think we can ask for that on there as well?
Absolutely, I have no problem putting that in there. If I could get it out of there instead of having to bond for it, that'd be
I mean,
great.
I realize it has to be done, I just think we should ask the question.
Yep.
Right, I agree.
Well, could we make a motion to approve the plan for
Well, I think we already did approve this back
okay.
in December, so more so tonight's was an informational discussion for you, just to let you know that we have taken a look and we found a way that we can swing this.
I have a quick question. What would happen, let's say, with the erratic behavior of this equipment now? Over time, is there some kind of a number you can put on what you're losing in terms of either revenue or efficiency or what, you know, I don't know if there's something, some kind of indicator that you can throw out there to say, well, if we don't have it,
If we
This-
don't have it and the system crashes, I would estimate probably north of 80% of our revenue is gone. I would say close to 80% of our revenue is generated by the ramps.
Yeah, I can't tell you the
Well-
actual percentage, but yeah.
No,
le-
because we
lease
have a
and
lot of those
rental.
rental contracts.
But lease and rental, revenue in the ramps, I mean, that's the bread and butter of parking division's revenue stream for it to cover its own operating expense, because it doesn't come from the tax base.
so you say you would lose that?
Well,
Or how-
there
There's the
would be, there
potential for that,
would be,
because there'd be no access and revenue control.
For
So
the
there would be
once you
no,
just
there would
drive
be
it out
no
without-
reason for folks to pay for their monthly parking if they didn't have to
We don't
put the
control
card
mechanism.
to get the
So-
gate to go up.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so what motion do you want tonight? Do you want a motion to
Receive and place it
proceed?
on.
That would be fine.
To receive and place it on file?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to do that and
I will second that.
keep us informed of where it goes.
We have a motion and a second after some good discussion. Thank you, staff. Can I get a vote on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Approved unanimously. Thank you. Item number 7, review and approval of the 2016 special assessment factors and rates.
Every year, we bring to you the proposed special assessment rates for the coming year. again, this year we've provided you with not only the proposed rates for this year, but also for comparison purposes, the rates from 2015. When we take a look at this, we go back, the intent here with the sewer rates, it's to represent the cost per foot for a main to go in. When we talk about the connections, that's to bring the lateral from the main to the property line. So that's what we're looking to recover there. Water utility performs a similar kind of analysis on their facilities and suggests their rates back to us. When we get into the second page, now we're starting to talk about our pavement rates. A type A street is a brand-new street, never opened to traffic before. Again, we do have a differential rate. If you look between residential zones for asphalt and concrete pavement, the residential number, regardless of the type of pavement, stays the same. We don't want to penalize a resident for living on a street that has a longer lifespan. So the way our assessment ordinance is set up, a residential street, a type A street, you pay the same rate. It's a fraction of the assessment factor. Or in this case, it's actually the asphalt. You pay the asphalt rate whether you live on an asphalt or a concrete street. All other zone classifications, you pay the full assessment factor. So we're looking at 115 versus 205, okay? Type B street would be something similar to like a Superior Road on the east side, or a Hillcrest Drive
Hillcrest.
on the west side, where it's an existing street, but there's no curb and gutter, and we're gonna urbanize it, we're gonna put curb and gutter in, okay? So there, because there is an existing pavement structure, it's not quite as expensive as a type A street for the residential zones. And then on a type C street, which is a existing street, has existing curb and gutter, that's your more classic reconstruct street. There, the assessment ordinance, I believe, sets us at 60% of the assessment factor for others other than residential, and 20% of the AF for residential. So if you run those numbers, 3450 would be 20% of 115. Okay. Last page is our asphalt resurfacing, and the asphalt resurfacing is largely driven by the numbers we received last year. We also take a look at a trend line or a trending analysis over time, but a lot of this is driven by the asphalt prices that we paid last year to help us set these rates.
Where is it reflected as when you said 60%? I mean, I know that
It's not in the
numbers are there.
you don't see it in the number, it's actually in the assessment ordinance. If you read through the assessment
Okay,
ordinance, it
so
talks about
this
the
is,
assessment.
these are just concrete numbers.
Correct, the calculation
Sorry.
of the assessment factor and how those numbers are made. So if we actually take a look at the hard numbers, for sanitary sewer, the cost per foot stays the same for everything here. On the storm sewer, the cost for the main, the $60 stays the same. The 8-inch or 6-inch storm connection stays the same. We did see some price increase on the 12-inch storm connections. Those are typically on commercial properties or other than residential. So there's a recommendation to go from $1,525 up to $1,550. It's only a $25 increase, but it helps offset some of that material cost of the PVC. The stormwater management, the fee in lieu of, if you have a development that requires stormwater management, and instead of creating a small stormwater management device on site, you are going to be part of a larger regional facility, you can buy into and pay a stormwater fee in lieu of doing something. That's this fee. Our stormwater management facilities, we've picked a lot of the low-hanging fruit. Those stormwater management facilities that we're doing on a regional basis are larger. We're having to pay more for more valuable property, and those costs are going up. DNR requirements continue to increase, requiring us to refine our designs and make them a little bit more technically savvy than things we've done in the past. So this all plays in. What we're looking at is going up from $2,100 per ERU to $2,400 per equivalent runoff unit to help us try to cover our cost on development of larger stormwater facilities.
Is it unusual to, I mean, I look at the 2015 versus 16 rates, that they haven't gone up in a number of these areas? Is that somewhat unusual?
Yes,
Because normally you would think that there'd be an increase of some sort.
we are expecting that there's going to be an increase at some point, and part of what we try to do is to moderate that. But we didn't see, based on the construction numbers that we had last year and how we develop our assessment factors, we did not see enough of that impact in 2015, although we suspect it's out there. We watch construction cost indices and consumer price indices and things of that nature to keep a feel for what's happening in, not only in the economy, but also in our industry. We know those price increases are coming, but we haven't felt them yet, and if we haven't felt them, according to our assessment ordinance, we really can't pass those numbers on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you anticipate increases, you wait until it actually happens, rather than.
We almost
maybe-
have to.
You almost have to, because I was just wondering if you could prorate something where you
Well,
could
we
just
have a
totally-
limited ability to have some admin costs in there, and that's,
I'm not asking for it, I'm just saying that, instead of just plopping it all at one time.
and we desperately try not to do that. We've largely been successful,
Okay.
so.
All right.
Water utility, their ordinary water user, they're going from $30 a foot up to $33 per front foot, and rock excavation is going from 50 up to 63. Anything larger than an 8-inch main goes from 37 per front foot up to 41. That larger main, also requiring rock excavation, goes from 57 up to $71 per front foot. A new 1-inch lateral, if constructed at the same time as a new water main, goes from $1,000 up to $1,100. If it requires rock excavation, that's being held at $2,000 for the lateral installation. A new 1-inch lateral on an existing water main, so if the main is there and you simply have to add a lateral to it, that goes from $2,000 up to $2,100. If it requires rock excavation, that's being held at $3,000. New 1-inch service connections are actual cost, and any service connection exceeding 1 inch is also actual cost. Those get billed directly to the property owner from water utility.
Director Grenier, what is the material on those 1-inch laterals?
Generally speaking, the laterals that are being installed by water utility for the last several years have been high-density polyethylene.
Okay.
There was a rash back in the, I think that was in the early 90s, where there was issues with some flared copper. The copper that was coming out was a recycled copper product that had some minor impurities in it, and rather than compression fitting, they were flared tool fittings, and there was some issues with flaring, and if it wasn't done entirely correctly at the flare, where the flare married up against the seat on the corporation valve, they were generating leaks, and there was a huge rash that after about 10 years, we wound up having water system leaks at the corp that water utilities all over the United States were having to fix. And when we started having problems with the rolled copper, the malleable copper, water utilities swapped out and started going to HDPE. And it's been working out a lot better for them.
I didn't know if there was that old black ABS that was a very popular item for a long time, and then now
No.
PEX, of
We-
course, so
We tend not to like ABS very much.
not too many people do.
Old truss pipe was not as reliable as what the industry had led us to believe originally. So, those of us who lived through the ABS days.
There's
Kinda
nothing
shut
with, maybe on a turn on this, but as far as mini sewers, that has nothing at all with this. Is there any, would that be,
Mini sewer, we don't assess for the main.
okay,
Mini sewer, we only charge the connection fee, which would be the storm sewer connection fee for a 6-inch connection.
So that's reflected here.
That's the $850.
All right, well, like I said, and I would just for my knowledge, the ordinance number that this would tie into, any idea? I mean, I can look it up too.
Assessment ordinance.
Because I do get we get questions on this type of thing.
9.40, I believe.
Just read all of 9.
My spare time.
Well,
Because the deferment is 41.
941 is deferment of special assessment, so I believe 940 is the special assessment ordinance.
All right. Okay.
We're not that well in tune with the code. We've been having this discussion on deferrals recently. So again, getting back to the pavement rates, a type A street for asphalt pavement, rather than looking at the different types of streets, I think if we concentrate on the assessment factor at the top, the assessment factor for asphalt pavements is going to stay consistent at $115 per front foot. Assessment factor on concrete pavements has gone from 200 up to 205, and that's where you're seeing there is a nominal increase based on what we're seeing in construction cost. Then for the type A, type B, and type C streets, those individual costs per front foot are a percentage of the assessment factor as dictated by the ordinance. So the number at the top is what's the important one, because that dictates all subsequent numbers. So we are looking at a $5 adjustment in the assessment factor for concrete pavements. Asphalt street resurfacing, the assessment factor, again, is staying constant at $28.40 per front foot, same as last year. The last item that's on here, for any outstanding balance, when assessments are levied and the invoice comes to the property owner, those invoices are due in 30 days. The property owner does have an ability to go into a payment plan, and any balance remaining that they put on the payment plan, any balance remaining for unpaid assessments after 30 days is subject to a handling charge. The reason for that is we have to borrow money, the city has to borrow money, and we pay a percentage to borrow money. Then we add 2% on top of that to handle the administrative cost of sending the bills out and things of that nature. Talking to finance director, our anticipated bond rates for 2016 are again anticipated to be about 2%. At 2% bonding or holding cost on top of that, we get a 4% interest rate for unpaid special assessments. So
That's fairly standard.
it's actually a pretty good deal.
Well, I think what we've got here is consistent with the way we've handled the assessments in the past, and where there are increases, it's based on cost justification.
Material.
So I guess on that basis, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I've got a motion to approve and a second to approve the special assessment factors and rates for 2016. Can I get a vote on this? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? All right, and that passes. Thank you. Number 9, a request by KS Energy Services to renew the annual hold harmless agreement for access to the City of Green Bay sewer system to conduct inspection of the sewer mains and laterals. Staff.
This is something that came up probably, I think about 4 years ago. KS Energy Services is contracted primarily by Wisconsin Public Service. Prior to doing utility replacement projects in the terrace area, they go and make sure that they physically verify the location and elevation of sanitary sewer laterals. That way, when they're directionally boring in the terrace, if they physically located the X, Y, and more importantly, the Z value, they won't cross bore through the laterals, which if there winds up being a leak in the gas main, if it goes into a sanitary lateral, comes up through the floor drain, could potentially cause an explosive situation in a house. In order for them to do that, the mechanism they use to verify where the laterals are is they drop a closed circuit television camera down into our main, not too dissimilar to the way that we televise our mains. Run that up, and it's got a remote deployable probe that goes up into the lateral, and then using a data sonde and a locating device from on top, they can get a depth measurement and a physical location. If necessary, they can pothole down. A lot more information than you needed. That's our main, and we don't allow just anybody to come into our main. KS, we've been working with for several years. They've been a good contractor to work with. We've actually found a couple of things. They have found some things that they brought to our attention where we found other utilities that have worked through us or things of that nature.
This is project driven generally, would it be,
It's more so WPS projects.
okay,
Okay, so what KS does is they're going out, they're doing field reconnaissance services for public service, but so that they're doing the reconnaissance in the right spot, they need access to our sewer
so,
to do that.
if I can ask a question on that, I just remember, you remember 240 Oxford,
Mhm.
in my district, and there was the gas, the water, public works, they all, it was kind of a perfect storm of sorts where, you know, one group bore into one of the other pipes, and there was just all sorts of issues. Was something like this help avoid that
That's
situation in the
exactly what
past?
it's intended to avoid.
Because believe me, that was a headache.
Yep,
So I'm assuming you support this.
Yeah, well, I'm just clarifying.
Yeah,
And then
no,
we-
that's,
Do we hold them harmless, or do they hold us harmless?
they hold us harmless from any situation that may occur, and if their entry, if the presence of their equipment in our main causes damage to our main, they are then obligated to make those repairs or pay for those repairs.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
It's more the reason for the hold harmless is to recuse us from any liability that would arise from their activities. Otherwise, stay
Right.
out of our main.
Yeah.
Right, makes sense.
Okay, move to approve.
I would second that.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Great, and that's passed. Item number 10, applications for tree and brush trimmer licenses by the following: A1 Tree Service, Inc., Best Stump Grinding, Economy Tree Service, LLC, Nelson Tree Service, Inc., and Ripley's Stump Grinding. Staff.
Recommend approval for all.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and approval on all. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. And item number 11, Director's Report on recent activities of the Public Works Department.
Very brief report tonight. Personnel Committee on Monday night this week, we brought forward a request to fill 4 positions. We had an engineering aide leave in early January. He has taken a position with the Department of Transportation. We had Janine Charlier, who I believe had 42 or 43 years service to the city, retired on the 30th of December. I just saw Janine last Friday. She's doing well. She has a big smile on her face, and I don't like her anymore.
I used to
But
carpool with her in the early 80s. So.
that's one of the positions that we're looking to fill. Another one that's a little bit of a heartbreaker for me, Brandon Lensmeyer, who was not in sanitation, he was in the street section now. Brandon worked in our street section. He has been a successful candidate, and he is going to be moving over into a supervisory role for transit department. So definitely an opportunity for him to further his career and do something that he's very excited about doing. So although we're going to miss him, we do wish him well. So we do have another position there that needs to be filled. And then the fourth one is a young man who came to us 2 years ago, maybe, Joe Lohr.
Oh, yeah.
Gentleman by the name of Joe Lohr, who's been working as a maintenance and enforcement attendant with the parking division. Joe is a very personable young man, real go-getter. Definitely another one of the folks that we do enjoy having on our staff. And Joe came to us and told us that he has decided to go back and continue his education and complete his education in becoming a pharmacist, which is what he had started to do originally. So again, we're going to hate to lose him. I enjoy every member of my staff, all 213 of them. Hard to see him go, but you understand why he's doing it, and you can't help but just wish him well.
Did the Personnel Committee approve them all?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yes, they did.
Out of the 230, you have 213 employees now.
Yeah.
How, what percentage are you to where do you want to be in terms of numbers?
Well, that's the number we've got in the table of
I
organization.
know that's a personnel issue, but I'm just,
That's the number we have in the table of organization. We are down quite a few bodies right now. And we have active recruitments on most of them. 3 of the positions are new positions that came about as a part of the budget that are going to be in our utilities division. And we are currently working on getting those job descriptions put together. Matter of fact, we're going to be meeting this week with HR to get those firmed up. Once we have the job descriptions completed, we'll have to send those down to Carlson Detman and have them run through so that they can be appropriately slotted in the schedule for payment. Then we can get them advertised. So we're anticipating getting those on the street here very, very shortly. Beyond that, as we all know, we had another visit from Mother Nature Monday night into Tuesday morning. The anticipation on that storm, as late as 10:30 on Monday night, was we were expected to get about 3 inches of snow. It was supposed to stop snowing about midnight. So we talked as a staff, came up with a game plan. We brought everybody in at 11 o'clock and we got on the primaries. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Tony Feetzer got on the phone to National Weather Service and said, what happened to midnight? And they said, yeah, well, it kind of stopped and started spinning and we don't know really when it's going to stop.
what did we end up with?
We ended up with
National Weather
between
Service.
4 and 5.
National Weather Service officially reported 4 early in the morning. I physically measured 5.5 inches on my driveway.
Well,
So I just don't believe that we got 4. Citywide, I think we got more.
It didn't stop snowing until 4 o'clock, so we had to kind of shuffle our game plan. We had put the units out on the primaries, finished the primary routes, gone into the residentials, and we started getting reports that we were losing the primaries again because the snow had continued. So we came back out of the residentials, made one more quick pass down the primaries to get the primaries whipped back into shape, then re-entered the residentials. With all of that, by 7 a.m., we hadn't completed all the residentials, but we were in every residential. By 9 o'clock, we were out of the residentials.
I want to go on record as saying I appreciate all the efforts. I called Tony and mentioned that, and I also called you as well.
And we had a great assist from Mother Nature, the fact that it got so warm yesterday, not even the heat, but the direct sunlight
Right.
definitely helped us out with.
Well, you do need some luck as well, but
Oh, yeah.
generally speaking, for what we had to deal with, I thought it was done very, very well.
And then this morning, we did send units back out into the Tuesday garbage routes because obviously folks who had put garbage out Monday night, we had to do some dodging of cans and things of that nature. So this morning, we concentrated our efforts on Tuesday garbage collection routes to try to clean up where we may have missed. And we went back into the Thursday routes to make sure that we were cleaned up enough so that we could get in tomorrow with no problems. Beyond that, starting tomorrow and on into Friday, we're going to continue going around most of the city, even residential roads. Most of the city looks in pretty good shape. We have gotten some responses back on some areas, especially areas that have heavy tree canopy. It doesn't seem right that during the winter when there's no leaves, but I have 8 or 10 streets that come to me off the top of my head that I can bring you down that just even the bare branches effectively block the sunlight, that we don't get radiant penetration for sunlight.
Reed and Oregon streets, maybe?
Yep, well,
Okay.
there's those, there are areas on Bond, there's,
Yeah.
on the east side, there's 4 or 5 in Alderman Tom Dewane's district, Delwish being one of them.
Yeah. Well,
St. Anne is another really bad one, that are still snow covered. They're trafficable, but they're snow covered, okay? We've got warm weather coming in, that's gonna start breaking up, so I've talked to Tony already, we're gonna take our down pressure equipment, our loaders and graders, and where we have snow breaking up with the warm temps, we're gonna get in there, get some scraping done, and try to get us back to where we were a week or so ago.
I find, there's times where I drive around the city, and if I go through an intersection and it's a little skiddy, I skid through it a little bit, I'll call in and just mention that. Generally speaking, it worked out very well, so. That's all I've got.
Before coming over here, I heard a forecast of another big storm for next week.
We followed up with the National Weather Service this afternoon, and they said it's just too early, even National Weather, to see how that's going to pan out, but the rumor is, it could be up to 10 inches.
Everybody
The
wants to
National
break
Weather
this story.
Service says.
What does Brad
we can't even
Spackowitz
tell
feel?
you.
That's all.
Well, I was having a conversation with Ellery McCardle at Tea today, and she mentioned that Brad says could be 8 to 12. And it's about 10 days out. So I shared with her a couple of years ago at the American Public Works Association International Congress, one of the topics, sessions that I attended was about meteorological prediction, and it was put on by a company out of the Chicago area by the name of Murray and Treadle, who for many years we had under contract as a private meteorologist. And a lot of the information you get at these conferences isn't necessarily directly applicable, but there were some things out of Murray and Treadle's presentation that day that I did take to heart and have served me pretty well over the last couple of years. And one of those was, on a 10-day forecast, we can tell you with reasonable probability that you will or will not get precipitation on that given day. We can't tell you how much, we can't tell you where, we can't tell you when. But it's a reasonable probability. If we tell you it's going to rain that day, there's a reasonable probability it might rain. At 7 days,
Thank you.
at 7 days, we're pretty darn sure that either it's going to be sunny. If we tell you it's sunny, it's going to be sunny. If we tell you you're going to get precipitation, you're going to get precipitation. We can't tell you when it's going to start or how much you're going to get. That's at 7 days. At 3 days, 72 hours, you can start making some plans that we're pretty darn sure that it's going to rain or not, and you're going to get this much. But
adjusts.
The timing-
You go from
the
10
timing-
days, 10 to 7 to 3, it just adjusts.
the timing of when it's going to start, when it's going to stop, we're still guessing at that. We're pretty sure you're going to get 3 inches, but it might start at noon, it might start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We really don't know. 18 hours out is about the
Right.
most accurate forecast you're going to get. Less than 18 hours, it's no longer a forecast, it's active.
So you have a plan of attack generally that's fairly consistent.
And I would say, both of the snow events we've had this year, and last year was kind of an odd year because we really didn't get a whole lot. I would say about 75% of the ones the winter before that, we had best data we could lay our hands on, most accurate data. Tony's got a direct line, he's got a phone number nobody else in the world has. Direct line to a meteorologist desk at the National Weather Service. We aren't getting the same weather reports that everybody else gets with that teletype. We're actually calling and talking to a body over there, okay? So we have as good or better information than anybody else has got. We're sitting down, we're game planning these storms at least a day in advance. And I would say both storms this year and at least 75% of the storms 2 years ago, the plan that we had didn't survive more than 5 minutes into the storm. Weather conditions changed so dramatically that we had to abandon the plan, and at that point, it's somewhat improvising, but not really. When you've done this enough, it's not really improvising, it's using your knowledge and adjusting on the fly.
You have to, this is kind of like a football game, you have to adjust.
Oh, very much
Or
so.
you will lose.
And I was talking to some folks at Personnel Monday night, and I said, snow and ice management has changed dramatically, even in the last 5 years, but definitely in the last 10. Where we used to have a snow plan, and snow would come down and snow would start to taper off, and the command was execute snow plan alpha, okay? That's just the way we did it. That's no longer it. You are part meteorologist. We're taking the weather forecast that we're getting from several different sources, we're synthesizing that and doing our own prognostication based off of what we're seeing. You have to be part chemist with how we use different de-icing and salting applications, our brine, what works, what doesn't, what temperature ranges they work at. How do we adjust this? Don't put too much brine down because that actually causes things to get slick, okay? You have to be part physicist. We have to know what's going on with pavement temperatures, air temperatures, barometric pressure, relative humidity, water content in the snow, amount of traffic that's out there, down pressure availability on your equipment,
Time of precipitation.
time of precipitation, total amount that you're going to get after you start a plowing operation. This is not the way we used to fight snow. This is a whole different ballgame. It's extremely scientific, and you have to be able to accommodate all these different variables, come up with your best attack plan, and then when things change, you got to be able to adapt to it. So it's not your constituent calling up saying, who's that idiot in the plow, I can do a better job. It's not just, even driving a plow isn't driving a plow anymore.
Some of the concerns that a few citizens have is when they come by the plows, and they come fairly quickly at times, and the snow will fly over into the sidewalk area after they've shoveled or what have you, and I don't know if there's a perfect speed, it depends on the road, I guess, but
Well,
where you know,
part of it is, the intent is never to fling snow into somebody's sidewalk. Part of it is dependent on how much snow we have, what the moisture content of that snow is, because that's going to dictate how it curls off of the end of the blade or off the end of the wing. How much we've received already, how high the banks are, because sometimes we have to go a little faster to get up and over the bank, or right back in the road where we started.
yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, driving a plow isn't even driving a plow anymore, Our old Oshkosh 6x6s, you actually had a second person there just to operate the wing. Now we're hanging 14, almost 16 feet iron on some of these plow trucks with wings.
One operator.
That's a long way to look out there and make sure you're not hitting something and you're getting close enough to do the job that you want. Managing that wing, keeping your blade and your wing in tandem. You're worried about your spreader operation on the back if you've got a spreader box. Keeping your own traction, watching your speed, watching for other people. It's challenging.
How long does it take for an operator to get fairly comfortable with all the equipment? In terms of training and such?
Well, most of our folks are truck drivers first and foremost in the street department. So they have the familiarity with the truck. The driving the truck portion is pretty straightforward. By the end of a season, you're pretty darn proficient. But some of these learning curves are brutal. We had folks who, it was their very first snowstorm, December 28th, 29th, and we got 13 and a half inches. That was a heck of a way to earn your stripes.
Yeah, we generally don't have to teach very many of our employees to operate equipment. They have to learn their spatial acuity. Here I am, there's the curb, where's the plow, where's the front corner, where's the back corner.
Do you try to keep the same drivers on the same routes or not?
Generally speaking, but it changes up every plow operation.
Things like vacation schedules, sickness, folks timing out. When we start getting into extended ops like we did in the December storm, once we hit that 16 barrier and we time folks out, then we got to start relieving people, and we got guys going into different routes that they normally don't plow. Sometimes it's worth it to shake things up a little bit and stick guys in a different route. We get a different perspective. But generally speaking, familiarity with your route makes you more proficient. So as much as we can, we do like to keep folks in the routes that when you get a route, that's yours. That in ideal situation.
I gotta go curl.
I think we're pretty well done then, right?
Yep.
Move to adjourn.
We got the director's report here if you want to place it on the file
okay.
first.
Okay,
Oh.
to receive it and place it.
I second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, move to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed, great.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll have a quiz on all this later, right?